William Ayers, a former member of the Weather Underground, a group that during the 70s claimed responsibility for at least a dozen bombings, including the U.S. Capitol and the Pentagon. His relationship with President-elect Barack Obama, of course, became an issue during the campaign. He is the author of Fugitive Days, Memoirs of an Anti-War Activist, which has just been reissued with a new afterword in paperback. There it is. Mr. Ayers, thanks for joining us again. Why re-release Fugitive Days now?
You know, that's really a publisher's decision, not my decision, but I wrote the book 8 years ago, and I wrote it in part to try to understand what it meant to be a young person set down in that historic period, a person from tremendous privilege, and making my way through the world and kind of the choices I made.
I think timing becomes relevant, you know, because timing becomes relevant coming out of the attention you got in the election. You didn't want to come out during the election.
Well, no one predicted the attention I would get in the election. I mean, this was not a decision based on that at all.
But you talk about the issues that happened there in the new afterword of the book. Do you regret not coming out during the election and saying there's nothing here?
Well, the premise of the whole come on to this segment that I've been silent is just not true. I've been teaching, I've been writing, I've been doing all the things I always do. But I did decide not to comment to the media on the presidential campaign because, again, I felt that I would be feeding a profoundly dishonest narrative, and I didn't really want to participate in that. So I didn't see any way to interrupt it. And since I couldn't interrupt it, I decided to just wait until it passed. And you know, I think that the dishonesty of it kind of runs to the point of like that I was somehow in hiding. One of my sons sent me a segment from some 24-hour news outfit, and they acted as if they had stalked me down and found me in hiding. Just not true. I was doing the things I always do.
Now, in this book, the ideas that are in it, with perspective on Barack Obama, you ever talk to him about what's in Fugitive Days?
Never.
He ever ask you about it?
Never.
Is that unusual for you, that being William Ayers and being in the Chicago area, that somebody talks to you and doesn't talk to you about your past?
I've written 7 books. I've edited another 13. And mostly what I talk about is schools and kids and juvenile justice, as you know. And those are the things that my work focuses on. And the fact that I have this past is of little interest. And when you say the fact that you're Bill Ayers, that character was created in this election.
Well, but he exists because of what happened. I mean, one of the interesting things about this book is that while it provides perspective on that period in history, dismisses the notion that your actions were heroic, expresses your doubts, but not an apology or a complete rejection of what happened during those years, the bombings.
Well, again, I think you have to read this as a memoir, not as a manifesto, not even as a history. But the reason that I undertook it actually was because, and remember, I wrote it. It was released. It was published in 2001, so I wrote it in the 2 years leading up to that. But I had enough distance from it that I felt that I could say something about it. But I wrote it as a memoir, as a way of kind of understanding a 10-year period in our history. And I thought it was relevant then. I think it's more relevant now. And the reason it is because we are once again bogged down in 2 wars. And if you add Israel-Palestine, that's a 3rd major conflict. And we don't seem to, as a democracy, we don't seem to be able to figure out how to assert the public will and bring these things to an end. I think people want these wars to end.
Isn't that all the more reason, though, for you to take a look back and reject what the Weather Underground did?
Well, there's nothing in there that there's an attempt to understand the things we did. Here we were in a situation where really a violent terrorist war was being waged against an entire population. We objected. We tried to end that war. And in trying to end it, we did cross lines of propriety, of legality, maybe even of common sense. But we never committed terror.
Why not? I have a tough time understanding this. How is what you did there, blowing up, detonating a bomb in the Pentagon, the New York Police Department headquarters, trying to target the Capitol, how is that not terrorism?
It's not terrorism because it doesn't target people, doesn't target people to either kill or injure. What it does, you could call it, I think, even much more.
How can a sophisticated academic like yourself believe that the inherent recklessness of exploding bombs that you know too well killed 3 of your own you know the potential for deadliness.
Right. It was definitely over lots of lines, definitely dangerous. And had we killed or injured anybody, I'm sure it would have been devastating for everyone, not them and us. But my point is that in a period when 2,000 people a week are being murdered, how do you end that? What do you do? And frankly, in those 10 years of that war, I was arrested many times. I took direct nonviolent action again and again. But the question comes after 70% of the American people oppose the war, after the war has been virtually lost, how do you end it? What do you do? And there's nothing in the book that says what we did was either brilliant or heroic or wonderful. It tries to understand, as memoirs do, the context in which that actor was acting.
But I would think that looking forward now, you'd want to set a table for people in addressing the current situations that didn't expose the violence. I mean, even looking back, in the 1974 manifesto of the Prairie Fire of the Weather Underground, one of the people you dedicate this book to is Sirhan Sirhan. I mean, what message does that send, especially if you don't reject it today and say, we praise Sirhan Sirhan? We should not have.
I reject that, absolutely.
We did these things we should not have. The 9/11 quote, we should have done more. We did not. We should not have. It's wrong. It's bad.
No, I disagree on the question we should not have done. We should have done more. What I'm saying there, and I've said it very clearly, is that no one did enough in this country to end the war. We knew it was wrong. We knew it was illegal. We knew it was immoral.
But going
we had
that route,
to do more.
But going that route
again,
of violence.
I don't defend the route we went, and I really urge people to participate in resistance, in nonviolent direct action to these wars. I don't urge violence at all, but let's admit that we live often in a sewer of violence, and opposing that violence is key.
Mr. Ayers, thank you very much for taking the opportunity today. The book is Fugitive Days.